Today on Outside the Box Reviews, Giant Monster Mania, we're taking a look at a face only a giant radioactive lizard could love. This is the X-Plus Diamond Reissue 30cm Minya figure. Once again, this is another piece in my step to building out a Destroy All Monsters line with X-Plus figures. And this is actually the 1968 version of Minya, so the right suit for Destroy All Monsters. Minya is the son of Godzilla, first appearing in the movie by the same title, and then also appears during the final battle of Destroy All Monsters, and actually is the one that takes out King Ghidorah, I guess. But this figure has a reputation for being one of the ugliest X-Plus figures, though it is correct in being extremely ugly. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. So yeah, Minya kinda does look like the Pillsbury Doughboy if you put him in the oven for about 3 hours too long. But as far as the actual detail, the suit accuracy that X-Plus got out of this costume, I think they did a great job here. As with a lot of the figures, we have these very nice shiny eyes. You can see him picking up the light, kind of giving them a little more lifelike appearance. The skin is overall just a gray tone, but there is some kind of browns brought into it. You can see, especially here in the creases around his nose, there is kind of a brownish hue going on there. The wrinkles are really nicely sculpted. There's also little textured bits where you can see the bumps in the skin. Really prominent back here on the back of his weirdly shaped head. We also get a little fin running down the middle of his head there. There is a bit of a heavy seam here around the jaw, but they almost seem to try to make it stick out a bit so that it would kind of disguise the fact that it's there. Then we have his really gross looking buck teeth there in the middle. I don't know who decided that he needed 3 teeth on top, 2 in the middle, and nothing on the sides, but that's a freaky looking face. We also do have the tongue sculpted and painted in there. There's not much difference in the paint between the tongue and the rest of the mouth, but it is definitely sculpted prominently. The teeth do have a nice kind of brown wash over the bone white, which I definitely appreciate. The neck on this figure, as with most Showa-era Godzilla characters, is really baggy and wrinkly, which makes a lot of sense. And then we go down into much smoother body with a lot of these little warts all over it, giving it a nice skin texture. We could also see some more of that brown kind of coming in here more prominently. Flipping Minya around to the back, we do have the beginnings of his dorsal plates. Really tiny, but you can see the Godzilla-shaped plates there. There is also kind of a yellow brought in here to tip these, to give them a little more definition from the rest of the figure. And then we have these smaller dorsal spines or scales or whatever these are going to be here on the side, just slightly raised up, not nearly as much as this middle row. And those continue all the way down the figure, even onto the tail itself. The arms on Minya are kind of in a really odd pose. We have the one hand kind of coming up looking like he's supposed to be holding an invisible beer, and then the other hand just kind of cupping down there like he's trying to hold something. Not really sure what this pose is supposed to be, but it actually does feel right for the character. It seems like something you would have seen him do. On both arms there's kind of a heavy seam here around the shoulder, but I honestly don't think they're too bad overall, especially this one here for his right arm is pretty well hidden. It's this left one where the shoulder protrudes a little more, where it's a little more noticeable. The arm itself is also very baggy looking. You can see all the wrinkles sculpted in here, showing off how loose fitting the costume was in this area. You also get a similar effect up here at the hips. You can see it kind of bunches up and gets baggy and then goes into his incredibly large thighs with more of that great warty texture to it, and also some kind of musculature, which is interesting because it's nowhere else on this figure. And then we have his shins that also get a little more wrinkly. Another heavy seam there going to the foot. And then we have his 3-toed foot, reminiscent of his father at this stage. A little extra brown added to the toes as well. No detail on the bottom of the feet. They're pretty smooth, and we get some copyright info there. Going back to the tail, on the underside, we do kind of have this wrinkly texture, which is appropriate for a character like this. And overall, it's a fairly short tail. This one does not come separate from the figure. It actually is attached in the box, so you don't even have to worry about heating up the body and popping the tail on. Once again, there's a big seam here where the tail connects, and like some of the joints on these figures, you can kind of rotate it, but it's not really an articulation point. For a size comparison, here's Minya next to his father, and you can see he comes up to about chest level on Godzilla, which seems appropriate. I believe this was about the right height difference. I want to say Minya was even just a little taller than this, maybe coming up to his shoulder in the movie, but overall I think they look pretty good together. I'm definitely glad to have this pairing of them rather than the really ugly Son of Godzilla design for for Godzilla, where he looked a heck of a lot like Minya. Minya was kind of the necessary evil in picking up these X-Plus figures. He was the one that I didn't necessarily really want. I never really had a very strong attachment to the character, but he appears in Destroy All Monsters, so he's making it into my collection. Fortunately, he was a little cheaper for me to pick up than some of the larger X-Plus figures, and he takes up a lot less shelf room, so he's kind of easy to set aside and make less noticeable. And just as a weird side note, the other day I had a coworker who knows I'm a Godzilla fanatic come up to me and talk about how he was amazed to find out that there was a live-action version of Godzuki from the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla cartoon, and it was Minya that he showed me a picture of, to which I quickly made him go look up Little Godzilla and be awed at the terror of that thing. But overall, Minya definitely gets a recommend. It's one of those pieces that if you don't really have an attachment to the character, that recommend gets really decreased because, well, you're not going to care about him. But if you do want a Minya figure in your collection, this is a fantastic example of the character. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, this has been our Outside the Box Reviews, Giant Monster Mania. Stay tuned for more to come.